Before we start, we'll just do a little housekeeping. But first, let me wish all of you, it's belated, happy 51st Independence. I hope the celebration was good and everybody enjoyed it. We are in the Crown Ballroom. The washrooms are located out this door, down to the back. You go through the double door, and it's to your left. They're both the ladies and the gents there. This seminar will be in 3 parts. I will be the first speaker talking about Rotoplastics, our products and different items. We will then have a short intermission where you'll be able to view the different products we have on display, interact with the team, and ask any questions. Then we'll have our second session, which will be a little more detailed about the workings of septic systems, hosted by my colleague Sarah. Then we'll have a longer break, and then we'll have the final session, which will start around 1 p.m. with my colleague Vivek, who will talk about water pumps. Hopefully by between 2 and 2:30, you will be out of here. The refreshments during each break will be same out this door, down the corridor by the double door. They're setting up for the first set of refreshments at around 10:15, so we will aim to end the first session by then, and then the second session around 12:15 p.m. So let me, my name is Warren Flax. I'm Export Sales and Business Development Lead at Rotoplastics. I have my colleague Vivek going from this side, go forward. Vivek Rampasad of the Water Source. He will be doing the pump section. Our group marketing manager, Shane Wilshire, in the middle. And then finally, on the end, Ms. Sarah Garcia, who is the company engineer. And in the back, who was greeting, some of you all came in, is Mr. Nesmadin Ramjohn. He is also in export sales. All right. So I'm going to hand over to Shane, who will do to introduce me, and then I'll come back and start.
Noisy stage. Good morning, everyone. All right, it's really a pleasure to be here and to host you this morning. As Warren would have said, we have been working with your markets for quite some time, and this is long overdue in terms of educating and spreading that knowledge on septic systems, wastewater management, as well as the pumps. So as Nizam in the back would have, he knows some of you guys. He's been in the market with us for 12 years now. And he's an excellent salesman. He has been doing a lot of work with you. So those who are interested in terms of sales can either contact Nizam, also Warren. In terms of the technical expertise when it comes to septic tanks, that's Sarah. And Vivek, as Warren mentioned, would be for your pumps. So we'll get everything started now. And let me introduce my colleague, Warren Oliver Giuseppe Flax. So Warren, he's the export sales manager. He has been a part of the export sales department for Rotoplastics Trinidad Limited for 5.5 years, but has been involved in sales for 20 years and export sales for 11 of these years. In both his previous job and current, he has found, developed, and retained export sales clients throughout the Caribbean, North and South America, while building a network of contacts that he has utilized to the benefit of his employers. He has had previous experience in creating and running companies from startup, most recently setting up and operationalizing the Rotoplastics St. Lucia Limited subsidiary, and acted as the operations manager for its first 2 years, developing the market and its customers before handing over. This while simultaneously responsible for the growth of one of Rotoplastics Trinidad Limited's many product categories by over 1 million Trinidad and Tobago dollars in a financial year. He is one of our main presenters for this seminar and previously was the architect, organizer, and one of the presenters of our first such seminar held in Antigua in April 2024, Jamaica in August 2024, and will be instrumental in the other seminars to be held in the other Caribbean countries. We have subsidiaries or export or wastewater treatment systems. Warren Flax holds a double major bachelor degree in sociology and management from the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine. He also holds a diploma in customer service management from the University of Leicester in the United Kingdom. Since joining Rotoplastics Trinidad, he has also acquired a certificate in decentralized wastewater treatment from Michigan State University from the USA. He loves to travel and meet with people, continuously growing these relationships while maintaining a passion for customer service. He is married with 2 wonderful daughters, sorry ladies, who are progressively getting more expensive as much as he loves them. One of his favorite dishes to eat is oil down, a truly magical dish introduced to him by his Grenadian family friend on a beach camping trip over 35 years ago. So he will be accepting any invitations from anyone after the seminar for the best oil down with a glass of Clark's Court 50-year-old on ice. Okay, welcome, Warren.
I'll take the Clark Court neat too if you don't have any ice, but I love oil down. Okay, so we're gonna get started. I heard there's a lot of traffic, and that's probably why there are people running late, but I have to respect your time for you, so we will get going. So, Rotoplastics Trinidad Limited, welcome to our Grenada Wastewater Treatment and Water Pump Seminar. All right, so 2 presenters today for the first session will be myself and Sarah, but I'm doing the first session with you. So, quick rundown of the agenda again. We'll start with an introduction about rotoplastics, septic tanks, what is a septic tank, about a rhino septic tank, and then we'll have a Q&A session. We open the floor to ask any questions you may have. So a little history about rotoplastics. We started in 1976, where our first product we made was our tough tank. I'm sure almost everybody in here has a tough tank. They've been selling in Grenada probably for about 30 years now. It is the best tank in the Caribbean. Since then, we have expanded our portfolio to include septics, which you'll hear about. We do plant pots, insulated containers, rope, garbage bags, garbage bins. That's stuff we manufacture. But then we also promote Pentax and Stiebel Eltron water pumps and tankless water heaters. And in the storage water heaters, the State brand of storage, which I will touch on going on. We are currently selling in 35 markets through North, Central, South America, all the way down to Peru, which just couldn't fit in the map, and the Caribbean, of course. So, our manufactured products, as we touched on, our water tanks, our waste containers, the bins, our ropes and twines, the insulated containers, bins, septic tanks, and grease traps. Some of them you'll see in the back here, particularly the grease traps and the septic tanks. Water tanks, a tough tank, manufactured using a rotomolded process. It has 3 layers. The innermost layer has something that we call health guard. Now, I was asked to touch on this because the health guard is important because it means that you can store potable water in the tank, which is a question we get about. Recently, and I'm proud to say I was part of a team that we have gotten a certification from a French lab called carriacou, the Attestation Certification Sanitaire, ACS, which means that the French, in France and the European Union, our tanks are now certified after being tested for storage of potable water. Why is this important? Because to be able to sell our water tanks into Martinique, Guadeloupe, and the French territories, you must have this certification. So we're very proud that we've achieved this certification and that we will be selling Tough Tank into Martinique and Guadeloupe within the next quarter. So we're very glad about that. So you can be assured that the tanks that you're getting here in Grenada, that's supplied by our many distributors, Tough Tank with their Health Guard inner liner, it's safe to store your potable drinking water in. Now, let me put a rider on that, which is important. Just because the liner prevents the growth of algae or any other contaminants, this doesn't mean that if you put dirty water into the tank, it's going to magically clean the water. That formula Sarah hasn't figured out yet. So in the meantime, until we figure that out, make sure when you put in your clean water will come out, okay? Another important thing, because while we give a 10-year warranty on our tanks, if you don't install the tank properly, it can collapse, fall over. You have to make sure, and sometimes I've seen tanks were put on a grass surface, fell over, and exploded. A client in Antigua. You must put it on a firm, flat, preferably concrete base that extends at least 2 to 3 inches outward from the tank to make sure it's on a flat, secure base. This is very important. I cannot state this enough.
Here's how the Tough Tank rainwater harvester works. Rainwater flows from your roof into the guttering and into the harvester. The harvester channels water into your tank while filtering out debris like leaves through the filter tray. Its removable tray makes cleaning quick and easy. Rainwater can now flow freely into the Tough Tank to clean the yard, wash cars, flush toilets, and water plants. Easy to clean and easy to install, the Tough Tank rainwater harvester is designed to make it simple and convenient to save rainwater whenever you need it.
Right, what you're seeing here is an innovation by Rotoplastics. We have sent over some into the market here already, but rainwater harvesting going forward based on climate change, is going to be important, not just in Grenada, but everywhere. Now, in my interactions with officials here in Grenada before, from up to 2 years ago, when I was at the Caribbean Water and Wastewater Association seminars, I know that Grenada is trying to make rainwater harvesting mandatory, hopefully within the next 18 months' time, once the legislation is passed. With this legislation, the plan is that all new structures will require rainwater harvesting attachments, while existing structures will have up to 5 years to retrofit to have rainwater harvesting capabilities. This is the legislation they would like to pass. I don't live here not any time, but they may be tweaking, but that is the general idea going forward. Now, another thing that we're working on to pair with our rainwater harvester, which is currently available, is something called a first flush system, and we're hoping to have this ready for market within the next year. How this works is that you put it on before the rainwater harvester, so when the rain falls, any leaves, gunk, dirt that's in your guttering will go into the first flush system and be flushed out, and then the rest will continue on through the rainwater harvester and into your tank. Now, with the rainwater harvester, we made it as simple as possible. The grill that you see there is removable, so if there are leaves that get through and don't slide off, the grill can easily be removed and shaken out and put it back in. For you today, we do have a rainwater harvester display. It's not on at the moment because the noise, but we'll turn it on later and you can inspect it and see how it works. It's a very simple device at a very good price, which we've made available to our distributors here. Septic tanks. We have been making septic tanks for almost as long as we've been in existence. We started off with our Rhino Fat Boy single chamber, and then we moved on to double chamber and larger septic tanks. what has happened is that throughout most of the Caribbean, Grenada included, the British standard for septic tanks was the accepted standard. Of course, the standard is based on building concrete septic tanks. So concrete septic tanks are not that easy to ship. I think the only territory I've come across where they are made ready to buy is in the Bahamas, where there are 3 distributors who build concrete septic tanks. But everywhere else in the Caribbean, everybody else, bricks, mortar, and all that, they build it themselves. But we made it easier with plastic, polyethylene, makes it easier to ship, transport, and install. But I'll get into that a little later. I don't want to get ahead of myself about that. Grease traps. Now, grease traps have been very important to separate your black and your gray water, because you really don't want the grease from your kitchen sinks going into your septic tanks. You want to get that separated. I have a little video for those of you who are not sure how it works about they're also called grease interceptors. A
grease interceptor is a required part of commercial kitchen plumbing that prevents grease from entering and clogging pipes. But what exactly is a grease interceptor and how does it work? In this video, we will walk through exactly that. To start, all liquid entering the interceptor must enter through the inlet pipe. A flow control is installed to restrict the flow of liquid to the grease interceptor so that it does not overwhelm the interceptor. An air intake valve helps relieve pressure that could build and prevent proper functioning. Fats, oils, and grease, also known as fog, floats on the surface of the water and accumulates behind grease retaining walls, known as baffles, while heavy solids fall to the bottom. Baffles extend into the water to keep fats, oils, cooking grease, and solids trapped, but allow water through. Because fog floats, it will remain trapped within the interceptor as long as routine maintenance takes place. Flow exits the interceptor through the outlet pipe and continues to the wastewater sewer system. Some interceptors have a viewport so that inspectors or employees can periodically check to make sure fog is not leaving the interceptor. There are different kinds of interceptors that work in different ways, but in general, the separation occurs because grease and oil are lighter than water and rise to the top, while food waste settle to the bottom, allowing clean water to leave from the lower part of the interceptor. Now you should understand the details of how a grease interceptor prevents fats, oils, and cooking grease from entering and clogging pipes.
Right, so we make grease traps. The key consideration with a grease trap is that you should have frequent maintenance. Now people ask me, well, how often should you maintain? Now that video showed, let's say, probably a commercial kitchen, but you do put them in homes. So for example, in Antigua, grease traps are mandatory for any home building or whatnot. So I've been working with their Central Housing and Planning Authority, where they build about 60 homes a year, and they bought from us grease traps, septic tanks, water tanks, rainwater harvesters for each house. So everybody in Antigua with these houses will get this feature. Now we make various sizes from 30 gallons. So the 30 gallons is on display here. We do a 225, 750, and we can do larger on request. Now, for example, we did a KFC in St. Lucia in cul-de-sac, which took two 1,500-gallon grease traps. So KFC, grease, yes, so it had to have a large one. Now, how often should you clean your grease trap? The recommended is 1 to 3 months, or use a 25% rule that if the fog, fats, oils, and grease and the sludge is 25% or more of the liquid depth, it's time to clean. Also, too, you observe it if you have smells or fruit flies near the outlets, you know it's time to clean it. So you should clean it regularly. Commercial places, kitchens would need more frequent cleaning than household. Now, while the 30-gallon is the smallest that we make at the moment, based on feedback through the Caribbean, interacting with contractors and people like yourself, we realize there's a need for even smaller ones, so that we're working on ones that can fit under the sink in homes. So that's to come. We're working on that. Hopefully by next year we'll have that available as well too. Now, don't discount the importance of the grease trap. I had a meeting with the Chief Environmental Health Officer of Grenada this week, and he showed me a particular project where he declined it because the grease trap was insufficient or poorly designed for the project. So Mr. Hazard is very serious about this, and he believes that grease traps should be included in all construction. So it was a very insightful meeting with Mr. Hazard. Lift stations. Rotoplastics makes lift stations. We have one on display at the back. How this works is that if your soak away or treatment plant or anything is at a higher level than where your septic tank is installed, lift station can raise the effluent up and continue pumping it either to the soak away or to the treatment unit. There are 3 types of pumps that you can use in a lift station. One for effluent only. Then there is the sewage ejector pump. So if the solids are up to 2 inches maximum, and then after that there are grinder pumps, which will grind the waste down so they can flow on into either the soak away or the treatment unit. Our lift station has a 50 US gallon capacity. We have a cutaway here showing the lift station and a submersible pump inside of it. They're made out of polyethylene, durable, and they last long. They can be put into soils that have corrosive environments. They'll stand up just like our plastic septic tanks. So here we have a typical installation of a lift station where you see the septic tank coming from the home, the lift station, and because the soak away is at a higher level, the lift station can pump the effluent into the soak away. Pentax. We represent Pentax throughout the entire Caribbean, and Pentax has been selling very well here in Grenada and in Carriacou. We must say that we are always pleased with how Pentax is, and we are continuing to support it. You'll see here we have a pump stand which we've developed in-house for displaying our products, which we'll be giving to our distributors here, so it's easier for you to see our different Pentax pumps available. And for those of you, there are 2 types of attachments, if you're not familiar, but I'm just going to touch on it briefly. My colleague Vivek will go into more detail, where you either have smart heads, which different from the pressure tank, which some of you may be familiar with. The smart head can control the flow of the water into the pump and help prevent pump burnout. Essentially, it will detect if there is water on the line, and if there's no water in the line, it will shut off the pump so that it won't burn out. But like I said, Vivek will go into more details onto this fabulous product. And then the pressure tank, which most people would be familiar with. We also developed a product in-house called a pump house. We have one here. This is to help protect your pump from weather, limited theft, because you know if a thief wants something, they will get it. So it just may hamper them slowly. But it works just with the smart head attachment, as you can see in the picture here. And it looks aesthetically better outside your house than just a pump. Right? And it can, in some instances, reduce the noise. Now, it's not made specifically for the Pentax pumps. You can use other pumps in it, but the size is up to a certain size. Usually, a 1 horsepower would fit into it. And then we do Stiebel Eltron tankless water heaters, state storage water heaters. And a new product we just developed recently is our water heater base, which you can use either with your other brand of water heaters or with our state. It will raise the water heater off the floor. So if you have an issue with dampness or wet floors or anything, there's a risk to the bottom of your tank getting rusted, this will remove this. So it's another innovation by Rotoplastics to the market for you guys, which will be available within this quarter. So we're just ramping up production on it, so it will be available. You can check your distributors coming forward for those who sell the storage water heaters, and you can use it in your home. So it has a universal design. Like I said, it's not limited to state. which we produce, but any brand, it's almost 2 feet wide so that it can hold a multitude of different types of storage heaters. No setup, easy, you just put it on the ground and you rest the storage heater on it. Right, so we're here about septic tanks. What are they? How do they work? Now, I'm sure a lot of you here know how septic tanks work, but bear with me, like when you're on the plane and they say they're doing the announcement about the safety gear, and most of us go like, oh, I have 5 minutes to send this WhatsApp because I've heard this before, you know, and you're trying to get it off. But bear with me, for those who are not too sure about a septic tank or those who know, it'll just be a refresher. So how do they work? A septic tank is a holding tank which provides initial treatment on wastewater. You can use them for homes, properties, anywhere. What's pictured here is our Rhino 750 low-profile septic tank. We make a variety of sizes, which I'm going to cover. And there's a short video on how it works.
Tank system. All waste that goes down the toilet in your home ends up in your septic system for treatment. But how exactly does it work? Let's find out how the Rhino polyethylene septic tank treats wastewater from households. It begins with the flush. The water, full of waste, flows into the first chamber of the septic tank through the inlet. It fills up to the hole in the baffle wall, before eventually flowing into the second chamber. Both chambers fill up, reaching the outlet pipe where effluent flows from the tank onwards into the drain field. Effluent is the treated wastewater that exits through the outlet. Let's examine what's inside the tank at this stage. Incoming wastewater or sewage contains solids that settle at the bottom of the first. Fats, oils, and greases accumulate at the surface of the effluent and are called scum. Because of the baffle wall, most of these solids are retained within the first chamber. The baffle prevents these solids from leaving the tank and flowing into the drain field. Microbes naturally present in the sludge start breaking down the organic matter through a process called anaerobic digestion. The treated wastewater or effluent exits the septic tank and flows through the pipes into a soakaway or drain field. What happens when the effluent leaves the septic tank? It trickles over a gravel bed and enters the soil at the bottom of the trench. Over time, it forms a biomat, a thick layer of microorganisms that anchor themselves to soil and rock particles. This biomat thickens into a natural filter and controls the flow rate of effluent into the soil. The effluent is eventually absorbed by plants and seeps into groundwater deep into the earth. This process supports the ecosystem as animals eat the plants and humans consume both, repeating the cycle from the beginning.
Right. What did you all think of that video? Was it informative? Okay. I have to thank my colleague Amina back in Trinidad who did this. As she's doing more and more videos, meaning I have to speak less and less. So the next thing is a AI of me in a video, so I don't have to speak at all. Right, so the functions of a septic tank: it separates, reduces, and decomposes of solids, provides storage for the separated solids, and passes the treated wastewater, aka effluent, out to the secondary treatment unit for further treatment. This is either soakaway, which is considered secondary treatment, or we have secondary treatment devices. There are 3 types of septic tanks, which are pretty common: the concrete, which you're all familiar with in Grenada. There are fiberglass and polyethylene, which is the type of septic tanks that we make. Now, the old ones, which are with the single compartment, which you find less and less being accepted throughout the Caribbean, but how it used to work was that the effluent would come in, sludge would form at the bottom, and then go into the outlet with a scum layer on the top. But now, most of the tanks that we make now, we provide 2-chamber tanks, where there is a sludge chamber and then a effluent chamber, where, what would happen is that you only pump your sludge from one side of the pump, of the septic, And you'll see in the diagram we have a effluent filter. This means that you, or if you don't want to do it, and I won't do it, get a professional to come, and you can check the level of effluent inside the second chamber, which will indicate if it's time to pump or not. So it's a handy little device that has an attachment with the septic tank. Now it's not, it is included with the 750, but available with the 500 gallon. Rotoplastics septic. So we make a variety, as you see, from a 300 gallon all the way up to our modular, which is customizable based on what you need. Now, the amount of users you see here, this is based on Trinidad. Later on, I will talk about Grenada. But in Trinidad, our Fat Boy 300 is recommended up to 3 users, the 500 up to 5 users. These are both single chamber septic tanks. Then we have the Rhino low profile 500, of which we have one in the back. This is dual chamber for up to 5 persons. The Rhino 750 up to 10 persons. The Rhino 1500 up to 20 persons, and the modular 8+. But this is based on Trinidad standards. I will come and show you how it is for Grenada later on. Oh, actually, no, Sarah will touch on that in her presentation because it's in her slides. Right. So we'll start with the 500 septic tank. All right, so it has a manway cover inspection port. So you don't need to remove the entire cover to inspect. The 8-inch inspection port is wide enough to be able to inspect, and also wide enough for pumping so that you can put the hose down and pump from there. It has lifting eyes which serve a dual purpose. You can use it either for when you're lifting to put it into position, or for wet or high water tables where you need to secure it with putting in a concrete base. You can use it to secure with straps, secure the septic tank into the ground. Right? So it has different points. You'll see it has an inlet. This has a pointer. Okay. So it has inlet, cover, lifting eyes, inspection port, outlet, and a baffle compartment. So the 500 is a little different from our 750, where we came up with a unique design where instead of having a baffle wall, the whole secondary compartment is an entire compartment by itself. Right? So this was a unique feature which we came up, and we think it's a very good advancement in the development of septic tanks. As you see, dual chamber, giving the height, width, length, and the width. Now, we've provided you with brochures, which has a lot of this same information, so I wouldn't hang on it too long. Now, the attractive part, because I had met with some people this week, is that the 500-gallon septic tank fits 24 in a 40-foot container for shipping purposes. The old Fat Boy 500-gallon single chamber, the most you could have gotten was like 8 into a 40-foot container. So when you add the cost of freight, it became a bit expensive. So we redesigned it to fit in a 40-foot container, keeping it within the dimensions requested or required to meet the standards throughout most of the Caribbean, and so we can fit 24 in a 40-foot container. Now, on the tank on the back, you'll see a device on top of it called a riser. Right? Risers help you to bury the tank a little deeper in the ground. Now, because of how we have it fitted here, if you wanted risers, then we would just reduce the amount in the container by 1. So you get 23, and the space where the 24th one would be, we can fill it with risers. So, but the risers are optional based on your requirements. And then we have the 750-gallon septic tank, which in Trinidad is for up to 10 users. But I will just touch briefly on the difference between Trinidad and Grenada. In Grenada, your requirements are based on the amount of bedrooms. So that a 1 to 2 bedroom house, the requirement is for a 500-gallon septic tank. So the majority of homes, the 500-gallon would be sufficient for your needs. Now the 750-gallon, which is a little more, the requirements for 6 persons or 3 bedrooms is 900 gallons, right? So the 750 is smaller than your local requirement, but you can, if you have a 3-bedroom, you have 2 options. Well, let me go back a bit. With 2 bedrooms, you can either have the standard required 500 gallon, or you can put in a 750. This is for growth. Now, you have a 2-bedroom home, you might think, okay, it's just going to be parents and probably 1 or 2 children. But 5 years later, you have 5 children. You're like, okay, we didn't plan for that. But you can put in a bigger septic tank in advance to plan for unplanned growth, right? So instead of a 500, it could go bigger, 750. If you have a 3-bedroom, we don't have a 1,000 or 900 gallon as yet, but it's coming. You can use 2 500 gallons, which will give you 1,000, and that will give you the coverage for a 3-bedroom. So it has a lot of the same features that the 500 gallon has, except for it has a baffle wall instead. You see the risers, right? It has a baffle wall instead of the separate chamber. Same inlet, the cover, inspection port, the riser here. Lifting eyes for both raising it and securing it. The outlet and the effluent filter is standard in the 750. Right? So the baffle wall divides the tank into 2 compartments. The heavy solids stay in the sludge chamber while the effluent goes on into the other chamber. With the 750, it was designed, we can fit 16 in a 40-foot container, right? And we ship them throughout the Caribbean. So we are mindful of our distributors that they want to be able to maximize the space in a container when they're buying our products. So this is pictures from the very first 500 gallons septic tanks we ever shipped out. I made sure and took the pictures so you can see how they're double stacked and they fit into the container, and we filled up to 24 of them. Our septic tanks are easily transportable, right? So it's easy to move around. The 750 weighs 340 pounds, while the 500 weighs 230 pounds. So you can put it back on the back of your regular pickup and transport it to your site, as opposed to having to take bricks, concrete, everything to go and build your concrete septic tank. They're also stackable. So for distributors or people selling it, you can stack them in the yard. So instead of having them all laid out, you can stack them too high. They take up less space, and you maximize your storage capacity. And they're strong. What we do, how we test it, is that we put one tank on top of the other. We did it with both the 750 and the 500. We filled the top tank with 5,000 gallons of water and left it to test to see, to simulate the pressures of the earth on it to see how it will go. And they stood up the test so that they're strong, very strong. Here's the accessories. Like I said, come with the riser and the effluent filter, which are available. You just ask the distributors you would like it with it, and we can supply it. Right? So how you clean the filter? You pull it out, inspect it, and then you wash it off with a hose water, and you put it back in. All right, I said the riser, so be able to put it lower in the soil. Because sometimes because what is important, and we'll show in a video later on, is that you don't want to put anything on top of the area where the septic tank is. No vehicles or any other things. And then sometimes you want to bury it a little deeper based on your soil conditions or anything. But with the riser, you can still have access to the tank below.
.500 low-profile septic tank manufactured by Rotoplastics Trinidad Limited. Before you begin digging, there are some important factors to consider. First, carefully select the location for the hole. Take note of any nearby trees with large roots, soil type, and location of the water table. Also consider how the tank will be accessed for maintenance. The hole should measure 98 inches long, 65 inches wide, and 62 inches deep. It is crucial to ensure the base is firm and level. For a dry installation, begin by placing a minimum 10-inch layer of well-packed sharp sand at the base. Position the tank in the hole, ensuring the inlet and outlet are correctly placed. Before backfilling, fill the tank with 12 inches of water to maintain the same level during the process. Backfill evenly around the tank in 12-inch layers using rounded 3/8 to 1/2 inch aggregate. Compact the soil thoroughly, avoiding the use of red sand, soil, or clay. For a wet installation, start with a 6-inch thick steel-reinforced level concrete layer at the base. Add well-packed sharp sand until both layers reach 10 inches in thickness. Place the tank in the hole and fill it with 12 inches of water before backfilling with concrete. Maintain the water level to match the concrete, ensuring a minimum thickness of 10 inches. Remember, backfill uniformly around the tank to avoid uneven pressure. Keep a minimum 6-inch backfill cover at the top and ensure the tank inspection port remains accessible. Avoid placing heavy loads directly above the tank or within a 10-foot radius. Finally, remember that the Rhino 500 and 750-gallon low-profile septic tank is designed for underground use only. Follow these guidelines for a successful installation.
Right, so all our tanks come with installation instructions for both dry and wet installations. Now, the video made mention of using red sand. Not all territories may have red sand. We never tell you exactly, okay, you have to use this, you have to use that. We suggest with the plumbers and the contractors, using your local knowledge, what works, what you have, which can be a good substitute if you don't have red sand. But the idea is you don't want to put it directly next to the earth because the pressures of the earth can deform the tank, even though it's filled with water. So you always have a different type of material around it. And talking with one or two people this week about there are areas here in Grenada where you have challenges with high water table, that we do provide information for wet installations. So next up we have our 1,500-gallon septic tank. This one, based on, it has airflow filter, manhole extensions, just like our, but they come built in as opposed to the risers that you see with the low-profile septic tanks. They are made from polyethylene as well. They're resistant to cracking, heavily ribbed for added protection. They're lightweight and compact and environmentally friendly. Then we have our modular septic tank, which is our pride and joy. The display in the back there, which we have, is made from a modular septic tank. Now that one we have there is a treatment unit, but we also make them in modular septic tanks and also for water tanks. The design is so that it can be installed both underground and above ground if you have challenges. It's very rugged and it comes with compartments. So there's two end units and then we have middle units. So we can build it to suit based on your project. So unlike with the 500 and the 750 and the 1500 where it limits the amount of users you can have, with the modular we can build to suit based on your project. With the modular we don't tend to sell it to distributors to have, because it's a special needs project. So you would normally contact us and say, look, I have this project, I have this amount of users or apartment building, and then we can design it to suit your requirements. It's made from high-density polyethylene for greater soil pressure and resistance, non-corrosive, and from fully recyclable material. It also has the anchoring bolsters to secure it for wet installations and for lifting eyes. There's a photo you'll see later on of an installation of one of these tanks in Tortola using the lifting eyes, but we'll come to that. It prevents leakage of the chemicals into the soil, and it can outlast possibly concrete. Now, the company has only been in existence for about 46 years. So we don't have data beyond 46 years about our septic tanks, but so far we don't have any issues. So the longer we go, the more data we have, and the longer lifespan the septic tank can provide.
When choosing a septic tank, it's crucial to make the right decision. Which option saves you time, effort, and money? A Rhino polyethylene septic tank or a traditional concrete septic tank? The initial steps for both tanks are similar. location selection, ordering materials, hiring labor, and excavating the hole. For the rhino tank, a compacted gravel bed is prepared. Meanwhile, for the concrete tank, the floor boxing and reinforcing steel are positioned. Depending on soil type, the rhino septic tank may need a concrete base. But for a concrete septic tank, large amounts of concrete must be mixed, poured, and left to dry, taking up valuable time. While the concrete tank is drying, the rhino tank is installed. With its fittings pre-attached, it's placed in the hole, backfilled, and filled with water simultaneously. The rhino tank is now ready for use. While the rhino polyethylene tank is already in use, the concrete tank still requires wall construction, reinforcement, and another drying period. Once plastered, the concrete tank must pass a leakage test, sanding with water for 24 hours. If the concrete tank fails the leakage test, it must be emptied, repaired, and tested again, costing more time and labor. Meanwhile, the rhino tank is problem-free. After repairs, a dividing wall and roof are built for the concrete tank, with more reinforcement and drying time. All the while, the rhino tank has been handling waste without any issues. Finally, pipes are installed and the concrete tank undergoes another round of testing. Once all leaks are fixed, it's ready for use, but only after days of labor and drying. When it comes to installation, the rhino polyethylene septic tank clearly excels. It's ready to use in 24 to 48 hours with minimum material and labor, compared to the 3 to 7 days needed for a concrete tank and up to 3 times cheaper too. Don't waste any more time and money than necessary. Choose the rhino polyethylene septic tank, built for faster, hassle-free installation, saving you time, labor, and money.
Right. So I know this can be a bit of a controversial topic. Can I have, by a show of hands, all contractors here today? I just want to see how many contractors are here today. Right. Okay. So I want you all to give me some feedback on this. So as you said in the video, all our septic tanks have similar installation processes, but would vary based on tank size and ground conditions. High traffic areas where heavy loads are common should be avoided if possible. The same should really apply too for a concrete septic tank. Now, the installation steps as highlighted in the video, you excavate the desired location, ensure the bedding is well compacted. For dry ground, the tank is placed directly in the hole and the hole is backfilled uniformly. With the wet one, you use concrete, okay? Now, the next part is a bit long, but just bear with me. I'm going to read out every single step. And contractors, please tell me if you do this and if we've gotten it correct, and this is the process. Now, there are concrete septic tanks and then there's concrete septic tanks. While I've been here, I've heard a variety of costs to build a concrete septic tank. There's quick and dirty, and then there's proper. So I'm not going to get into the argument about it, but still, the process should be the same. Right? You choose and confirm the preferred location for the septic tank, determining, ordering, and arranging delivery of all required materials. This is time and money. Arranging labor. Finding guys who didn't go drinking the night before and showing up on the site. Dig the pit for the septic tank. The septic tank floor boxing is then installed and reinforced position. Concrete is mixed and poured. That's if you get concrete, whether it's from TCL or I think it's Columbia, the Arco, I forget the name. Availability of cement in many of the islands is a challenge at times. When I was based in St. Lucia, there was a 2-month period, there was just no cement on the island. None, right? When the concrete floor is set, the block walls of the septic tank should be constructed. Reinforcing is to be installed. Completely fill all external blocks with concrete. Plaster inside the external walls and joins of the septic tank. When the plaster is dried and set, carry out a leakage test by filling the septic tank with water, marking the water level and allowing to stand for at least 24 hours. The water level in the tank should not drop more than 1 centimeter over 24 hours. Empty the septic tank and repair any leakage. Once the septic tank is watertight, install the dividing wall. Boxing for the septic tank roof and access lids is then to be installed and roof reinforcing positioned. Pour the concrete roof slab, pour the concrete access lids, install all pipe work to and from the septic tank, install septic tank filter and connect septic tank to the toilet, install access lids and seal edges with mortar, carry out a flow test on the completed system and check for any leakage, repair if necessary. Does that sound like what you have to do, contractors? No, okay. This is from a site saying the proper way of building a concrete septic tank. But like I said before, there's quick and dirty, and then there's proper. I'm not going to point out anybody or anything, how you build it. But what I'm saying is that time is a cost which you can't get back. The time it will take, whether you don't do all those steps or you do all those steps, using a plastic or even a plastic septic tank will always be faster. The same money, yes, you have to dig the hole, but a good contractor, 24, 48 hours max, you put in the septic tank and you move on to your next project. Time and labor will be affected with the concrete septic tank. All right? So that is a valuable thing which can help in your projects. Make sure you don't have overruns. If it's not finished, the guys don't show up. You all know the problems. I don't have to explain it to you. You all deal with it all the time, right? I'm just showing you the advantage. All our septic tanks come with a 10-year limited warranty. This is a manufacturer's warranty, meaning that it should not fail or it won't fail within 10 years. This doesn't mean that beyond 10, it's going to stop working at 10 years. With all products, we provide a manufacturer's warranty, but our tanks have been shown to last over 30 years so far. So you can be confident you're getting a quality product from Rotoplastics. So here are some pictures of some installations of different ones from throughout the Caribbean, because we sell our products throughout the Caribbean. Some of these photos are from Tortola, where their preference is for the modular septic tank based on their ground conditions. Then we also have a picture, well, this is installed. Come back a bit. So that's the 750 being installed in St. Kitts. I say, okay, well, we had a picture of the 750 being installed in Jamaica, but we removed it. But we sell from Trinidad all the way up to British Virgin Islands, Jamaica, everywhere our tanks are available, including Grenada. Right, so any questions? We have mics set up, one there, and Shane has a walk-around mic. Just raise your hand if you have a question, and she will come to you. Okay, either you have no questions or I was very thorough in my presentation. Let's go with the second. No questions? Okay, all right. So at this time, we're going to have a brief intermission. We welcome you to go and inspect the septic tanks, the grease traps, the lift station, the treatment unit in the back. We also have the pumps here as well. We're going to turn on the rainwater harvester so you can see it in action. And then after you had a look at it, you can go down to the back to get some coffee and tea, and then we will continue with our next session with Sarah. Thank you. Before you get up as well, too, we have, as with the other territories where we've done it, Antigua and Jamaica, for all the plumbers, we start a plumbers group. You can use the QR code you see on the screen to scan it to join. It's already active, the Grenada Plumbers Group, and we share information with you. You can ask questions, and you get an opportunity to talk with your other plumber colleagues. Some you know, some you may not know, and questions, and it's been very helpful, and it has really taken off in Jamaica. I think that group is forever. I've had to put my phone on silent because it's just ding, 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 ding all day long. So it's a very good resource for you. And also, too, we have our full Rotoplastics catalog that you can scan as well and download, all right? So it'll be a 15-minute break. Take a look around, and we'll start back again in about 15 minutes' time.
Okay, everyone, we'll begin in like 1 minute. So please make your way to your seats, and I'll introduce our second speaker. Okay, everyone, so we'll begin. As Warren said, we have the plumbers group as well as our catalog, so feel free, those of you who just joined us as well, feel free to scan and join as well as download the Rotoplastics catalog. So our next speaker will be Ms. Sarah Garcia. Sarah Garcia is a highly experienced professional with over 15 years of extensive technical knowledge in the rotational molding industry, which includes the design and development of prefabricated polyethylene tanks and treatment units. Through her remarkable career, Sarah has become a trusted authority on the design, installation, and maintenance of these units. Her in-depth understanding of the manufacturing process enables her to provide clients the most reliable and efficient solution for their treatment system requirements. Sarah holds an industrial engineering degree from the prestigious, bear with me, Universidad Católica Andrés Bello in Caracas, Venezuela, and an MBA in Logistics and Supply Chain Management from the Australian Institute of Business. Additionally, she has earned a certificate in wastewater management from SBCS Global Learning Institute and has completed an extensive rotational molding training program from the Association of Rotational Molders Training Academy, demonstrating her commitment to staying in the forefront of the field. So you understand the depth of her knowledge. In an industry predominantly occupied by men, Sarah has defied the odds, establishing a successful career through her perseverance and dedication. And it's one of the reasons why I personally admire her so much. Navigating the challenges of this male-dominated field, she has earned respect for her peers and clients alike. Sarah's unique perspective, combined with her years of experience and unwavering commitment to excellence, has allowed her to thrive in this competitive industry that is often challenging for women to excel in. Join Sarah for an insightful seminar as she shares her expert advice on the application and installation of prefabricated polyethylene treatment systems, from selecting the right products to suit your needs. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you, Shane, for such wonderful introduction. It is an honor for me to be here with you all this morning, sharing a little bit of my knowledge and experience in the non-very glamorous field of septic systems. So thank you very much for joining us today. And we will now start the presentation for the introduction to wastewater treatments. So the first concept I would like to touch on this morning is wastewater. And what is wastewater? We generally tend to believe that wastewater is simply dirty water, and is more complex than that. As I said, it's a complex mixture of solids, liquids, and other effluents, microorganisms, and organic matter that enters into a system and is composed of 3 different layers. We have, where's he? Okay, okay. It's not pointing. No, it's not working. All right. So we have the top layer, or the scum, as we all know it, which consists of basically all the floatable solids, all the fats, oils, greases, and any other, light solid that will tend to go up to the surface of the tank. Then we have the middle layer, which is liquid, relatively free of solids, and is the effluent that we will like to treat to ensure that it reaches its optimum quality before it exits the system. And we have the bottom layer, which consists of all the heavy solids, which could include bone particles, soils, unconsumed food, and other heavy items. So it is very important for us to understand the composition of wastewater, because this would lead us to managing it adequately in order to have a better treatment of our effluent. Types of wastewater. So wastewater is generally divided in 2 different layers, black water and gray water. Under black water, we have toilet waste and kitchen waste, and under gray water, we have laundry waste and water that exits the showers. Generally, kitchen waste is not considered black water, but for this purpose, due to the amount of organic materials that it contains, we are going to classify it as black water due to the effects it could have in our system. Retention time. Well, retention time is a very crucial concept when we are dealing with wastewater treatment. It's basically the amount of time the water spends inside of the unit to ensure that proper treatment and separations of solids occur. So we have a formula to determine retention time. So retention time in days is calculated by dividing the effective volume, or the tank capacity, by the flow rate, or the amount of gallons that enter the unit on a daily basis. So we have an example here at the bottom. I wish this was working. I don't know. It's not. You got it to work. Yeah. So retention time for a 750-gallon tank will be calculated by dividing the 750 gallons, which is the capacity of the tank, by 5 users, if it's the case, utilizing 100 gallons per day. So that will give us a total of 1.5 days retention time. Now, as I said, this is one of the main concepts we have to bear in mind when discussing wastewater treatment. The length of time the water is actually being treated inside of the unit. So take note of this. It's a very important formula to keep. So, well, retention time is important as if it does not remain long enough inside of the septic, we could have effluent with particles exiting it, or organic matter, or untreated effluent leaving the unit. And if it remains too long inside of the system, it could create a lot of settlement and a lot of buildup of solids inside of the unit. So it's something that we need to manage, and we need to calculate accordingly. We need to ensure that it's not too long, but also that it's not too short. So wastewater could be treated in various stages. So we have what we know as primary treatment, which basically consists on separating the solids from the lighter particles and the effluent. So it's just basically separation. As an example of that, we have septic tanks. Then we have secondary treatment, which is a little more, it goes a little more in depth into the treatment of the actual effluent. And we have now organic particles being decomposed in this section. And this includes soakaways and ATUs. We will touch on each one of these as we go along. And then we have tertiary treatment, which is basically the polishing treatment. It will remove any final particles or components that we still have there that we do not want to exit the unit. So as examples of that, we have chlorinators and UV lights. So primary treatment, as I said, occurs through the sedimentation process, which involves the separation of all those solids that float and those that will sink. And the main unit to treat waste as primary treatment is a septic tank. So we have samples of all of our septic tanks. Warren would have gone through the wide range of options that we offer. So you all will have an idea of the various options we have. Secondary treatments now is an additional phase that wastewater undergoes while it's in the septic tank. So the effluent from this section now is of a higher quality. On the first treatment, we would have at least removed 50 to 60% of the particles. So we would have gotten a kind of clear water, but still not fully purified as we would like it. And then during the secondary treatment, it will now give us a much higher quality of effluent. So some types of secondary treatments, as I said, include soakaway pits and prefabricated treatment units. Here we could see an image of our 750-gallon septic tank connected to a soakaway. So what is a soakaway? A soakaway is basically a drainage field that receives the water exiting the septic tank and filtrates it until this percolates into the soil. So that, as I said, well, they're typically constructed by digging a hole in the ground, backfilling it with gravel, and connecting it to the septic tank. Here we could see to your right, you could see how they would have digged the hole, and they would have cut the trench in, and then you will see to the other side how they would have filled it with gravel, and at the end, you will see the lines connected. So the water will exit the tank through those lines and sweep through the bed of gravel, which will act as a filter to remove all the remaining particles that are still in the wastewater. So when we are choosing to install a soakaway, we have to be very concerned with where we are installing it. So we have to bear in mind that we cannot install soakaways in areas with a high water table. This represents a risk to your health. Once the effluent gets in contact with drinking water, this could be harmful for everyone. So it is very important that we identify a proper area to install a soakaway. Clay soils are also unsuitable for the installation of soakaways because it will not allow the water to percolate. It will just remain. It will settle and it will remain, not allowing the filtration process to occur. So here we have a few areas where soakaways cannot be installed. So we have in areas with poor quality soil or low absorption, in areas with a high water table, within 5 meters of a building or roads or water sources, where soakaway was previously installed, close to any electrical cables, gas lines, trees with large roots, and in areas at risk of flooding. So for areas, the areas described on the previous slide, we have a solution, and it's our prefabricated secondary treatment units. So when to use a secondary treatment unit? These are normally used to overcome the difficult site conditions, as I previously mentioned, as low permeability soils, high permeability soils, sensitive areas and shallow depth of ground and bedrock, areas with a high water table, and areas that are prone to flooding. So as secondary treatment units, what we could offer is digesters, what we call a digester. So these are basically units that treat the effluent that exits the system. The same way how we have the soakaway, we will have the digesters, more or less, yeah, fulfilling the same function, but in a whole different setup. So bacterial naturally reduces the sludge volume during the digestion process and will require at times the use of oxygen, or it could also happen in the absence of oxygen. So we have different types of digesters, what we call aerobic digesters in the presence of oxygen, or anaerobic digesters, which are in the absence of oxygen. We also have what we call mixed digesters, which is the combination of both. So here we have a diagram showing the effluent exiting the toilet, entering the septic tank, where the separation of solids and sludge, solids and scum occurs. All the fats and oils will go up to the top layer, the sludge will settle, and the effluent will move on to the second treatment unit, which will be the digester. In this case, we have a diagram of an anaerobic treatment unit. So you all will see the perforated spheres, or bioballs as we call it, inside of this unit. Now, the purpose of these balls, some of you all would have gotten the opportunity to see them inside of our modular tank, is that it enhances the surface area. So by doing that, you allow the bacteria, more bacteria to grow. Bacteria grows by adhering to the surface area, so the more surface area you have, the more bacteria you will have in your system. So the faster the effluent will be treated and the solids will break down. And from the secondary treatment unit, you have the option as well of sending all your effluent into a soakaway. Here we have a video of how anaerobic bacteria works. So basically, during the anaerobic process, the bacteria will decompose the solids, will break down the solids, and it will create or release gases, which at times could be collected and redirected and be, converted into methane and then, into electricity to power turbines. We would have spoken about the anaerobic treatment units, and we also have the option of including aerobic bacteria into our systems. So here we will discuss what is an aerobic treatment unit and what does it do. So ATUs, or aerobic treatment units, use diffusers connected to an air pump or an air compressor to inject oxygen into the system. So the oxygen will basically break down the bacteria. The oxygen will not break down the bacteria. The oxygen will feed the bacteria, the aerobic bacteria, which will break down all the solids that enter this chamber. So effluent that exits the aerobic treatment unit can then be directed to a third level of treatment, which is the tertiary treatment that we will be touching on shortly. So effluent that exits this unit is generally of a better quality, of course, of the effluent that exits the primary treatment. But before being discharged, it should still be tested to ensure that we are within the permissible levels of each one of the territories wherever the units are being installed. So modular wastewater systems. You will have seen we have a sample of our unit. This one on the video is a 4-chamber unit. So in this unit, we have the sedimentation chamber as the first chamber. So all these solids will settle and the scum will float in the first chamber. From there, we have the anaerobic chamber with the polyethylene spheres or the bioballs. Then the effluent will flow to the third chamber, which is the aerobic chamber. So you all could see it has an air pump and a diffuser that is injecting the oxygen into the treatment. And let's wait until it reaches back to the animation, right. And from there, it flows into the fourth chamber, which is the clarification chamber. Now, on the unit we have here, we haven't had include recirculation. So I'll show you all basically what the recirculation looks like. So this is the actual unit we have on display. So from the inlet, we have the chamber with the bioballs, into the second chamber with the diffuser. Then we go on to the third chamber, where we have this recirculation unit, which is like a unit that will pull the effluent from that chamber and send it back into the first chamber for it to be further treated. So it goes through the cycle all over again. So we get a better quality effluent by doing this. So yeah, recirculation definitely enhances the quality of the effluent. That's why we would have included on our systems lately. So we use airflow, high blow air pumps and high blow diffusers on our systems. So you all could see a sample of how they look like. We also have them on display. So number 1 is the pump. Number 2 is the air diffuser. Tertiary treatment. So these are just methods, as I said before, that will help us polish the effluent, polish the finish of the effluent. So whatever particles that are remaining, we will now treat them by passing them through the tertiary treatment. So as options for this, we have the chlorinators or the UV lights. So you all could see, well, this is an example of a chlorinator. So it's just basically a device that adds chlorine into the effluent or allows the effluent to pass through a chlorine chamber to kill any potential or harmful bacteria that's still there. So it disinfects the effluent before it exits the unit. It's a man-made chemical that is used to kill harmful bacteria. And well, within recent times, a lot of territories have been trying to get away from the using chlorinators because it also pollutes the environment. Like if you treat all your effluent with chlorine and do not remove that large amount of chlorine, all of this will be sent into your streams or water paths. So it is very important that once we use a chlorinator, we try to remove the chlorine after with a dechlorination unit. Here we have some benefits. So it's a very effective disinfectant. It could kill the bacteria, viruses, or any other microorganisms. It's a relatively inexpensive method to achieve disinfection, but it also has its considerations, and is that it needs, depending on the case by case of the case, you may need a high level of chlorine. So even though it's relatively inexpensive, if you need a lot of chlorine to balance your system, you will be in a position where it will result expensive. Overdosing can lead to high levels of harmful disinfection. So that is what I was referring to before. You don't want to send high levels of chlorine into your streams. And it could be harmful to humans if handled improperly. So it has its pros and cons. And as an alternative to chlorination, we have treatment with UV lights. Now, UV lights, are basically ultraviolet lights that are invisible and destroy the microorganisms that is still in the wastewater through radiation. So to the side of your screen, you could view the unit. You could follow the arrows. I don't know if you all could see it from the back. But how it works is that the effluent goes inside of the main chamber and surrounds the bulb, the UV bulb. And this is what allows the UV light to be in contact with the effluent and kill the bacteria that is still, is still in the effluent. So UV is safe and effective and achieves a kill rate of up to 99% of harmful bacteria and viruses. So we have benefits for the UV lights. These do not introduce any chemicals into the wastewater, reducing the risk of harmful disinfection, and are highly effective in inactivating a wide range of pathogens, ensuring that treated water is safe for discharge and reuse. It requires minimal maintenance. It achieves effective disinfection within seconds or minutes. And we have as well, some considerations, and that is that it requires energy. So if your system is in an area where there's no access to electricity, you may not be able to use a UV light. And effectiveness can be impacted by water quality. And of course, another consideration is the cost. So now we will move on to septic tank maintenance. This is a very key point because a lot of people would have asked me during the intermission, how does the system perform? And what is the quality of the water like as it exits the unit? And for me, it's very hard to give you figures because it is critical to have proper maintenance plans when we have these treatment units and our septic tanks installed at home or at our commercial buildings, wherever our installation is, but we must have proper maintenance. We also need to ensure that what enters the septic tank is what should enter. So what I mean with this is that we are not to allow any chemicals or medications such as antibiotics or any disinfectants into our septic tank. This is something new to a lot of people, but the problem with allowing these chemicals to enter our system is that they will immediately kill the bacteria that is in it. So whether it's anaerobic bacteria or aerobic bacteria, these will die if you throw large quantities of chemicals or you pass large quantities of chemicals through your system. So we need to ensure that what is being flushed is chemicals that are, environmentally friendly, if that's something that will not destroy the bacteria in our system. So here we have a short video.
So you've installed a Rhino low-profile septic tank. Now it's time to maintain it. All Rhino low-profile septic tanks are designed for durability and efficient waste management. However, regular maintenance is essential to ensure your septic system functions properly. Timely maintenance prevents costly repairs, avoids backups, protects our environmental health, and extends the life of your septic system. Regular inspection is recommended to check for any visible damage, leaks, or blockages. Though you may require a septic professional to assist you, here are the steps you'll need for proper maintenance. Step 1. Inspection. Every 12 to 18 months, or as required, the tank should be checked to determine the depth of both the scum and sludge. In a low-profile tank, the scum should not exceed 3 inches and sludge should not exceed 10 inches. In addition, if the wastewater level is too high or too low, it is a clear sign of malfunction. Call your septic technician to make recommendations. Step 2. Pumping. Pump out the tank every 3 to 5 years, or as required, depending on the levels of sludge and scum. Note that choosing a smaller tank than recommended will increase the frequency of required pump outs. Step 3. Cleaning the effluent filter. Clean as needed to prevent clogging, avoiding backups. Step 4. Secure the tank lid with the 20-inch manway covers and 8-inch inspection ports. Risers are available to provide more protection. Continually monitoring your system is the best way to determine when and how often you should inspect and pump your septic tank. Otherwise, here's what you can do to maintain a healthy septic system. Avoid flushing non-biodegradable items down the toilet like paper towels, cigarette butts, disposable diapers, wipes, feminine hygiene products, condoms, medications, cotton balls, and dental floss. Only wastewater from toilets should be allowed into the septic tank. Grey water from showers, laundry, and sinks will cause irreparable damage to the organic environment inside the septic system. Do not pour toxic substances, medicines such as antibiotics or household disinfectants down the drain. They disrupt the natural biological performance of the system. Ultimately, regular maintenance of your Rhino low-profile septic tank ensures efficient operation and longevity.
Right, so we would have seen the importance of having proper maintenance and maintaining our systems properly. So not only not pouring chemicals or disinfectants through the toilet, but also the proper way of pumping. How often should we pump our system? How often should we inspect our system? In addition to this, we have to bear in mind that when we have treatment units, we have additional maintenance to do besides the inspection and the pump out. If we have an aerobic treatment unit that includes an air compressor, we will now have to inspect the air pump, the filters in the air pump, ensure that they are replaced as needed in order to maintain the unit performing as it should. So all of these things are very key, if we want to ensure that the effluent that exits the units are up to the standard we require. So here we have a list of some of the regional standards and guidelines. For Grenada, we would have, one of the standards we would have seen is the OECS Building Code, Section 8, which touches on sewage and waste disposal. This is kind of wide, but it gives us the values that we need to ensure our systems, the output, I should say. So the values for BOD, for suspended solids, all of these things. So if we need to test our system, the table to ensure that the values are that we comply to the values is there on this code. In addition to this, we have a guideline from the Ministry of Health, which will tell us more or less the sizing of the unit. So how many gallons we will need for a septic tank if it's a house with 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, or 5 bedrooms. So what we would have seen is for a 5-bedroom home, we require about a 1,300-gallon tank. For a 2-bedroom home, you require a 500-gallon tank. So we have, as Warren would have mentioned, a wide range of tanks that will definitely suit your needs depending on the project you are looking to install. So for Trinidad, we have the TTBS standard, Code of Practice for the Design and Construction of Septic Tanks. A lot of our septic tanks are designed using this code as well. And well, we have the Water and Sewage Authority guidelines. For Antigua, we have the OECS Building Code. For Guyana, we have the Guyana National Bureau of Standards Code. And for Jamaica, we have the Ministry of Health and Environmental Health Unit requirements guideline, as well as the NEPA Natural Resource Conservation regulations. So these are standards that are available for the region. So we try to follow the standards, go through them, see what is needed in each one of the territories where we introduce our products. So we will be willing to work with you all to ensure that whichever systems you require are compliant with the standards or the codes that are presently being implemented here in Grenada. So once again, here we have the different options that we offer. Our low-profile Rhino 750. This tank could be suitable for a 1 or 2 bedroom house, which is a total of 4 users max, as well as the 500. Both of them could be used if you are dealing with a 2-bedroom home. For a 3 and 4 bedroom homes, we have our modular tank. Our modular tank comes in various capacities. We have from 2 modules, 3 modules, 4 modules, up to 5 modules. So we could definitely size it to suit for a 3, a 4, or a 5-bedroom house. And our Rhino 1500 will definitely cover your 5-bedroom house. So we have these guidelines. These would have been touched by Warren a little earlier on. This is based on the maximum number of users. So we have, right, as I said, for 1 or 2 bedrooms, the 750 or the 500, and the modular tank and the Rhino tank for larger size. So why are Rotoplastics septic tanks the best choice for you? Well, as you all would have seen there, these are very easy to handle. It's very lightweight products compared to concrete septic tanks. They are very durable. They are inexpensive. They are one-piece construction, well, except for the Rhino 1500 and the modular tank. You all would have seen the modular tank has a bolt-in mechanism around it. Because of the material that we use to manufacture them, these are non-corrosive. They are all watertight. They're easy to repair if needed. Obviously, with the right technical personnel, but these can be repaired. They are not porous, and we offer on all our products a 10-year warranty. So this carries us to the end of my presentation. So I would like now to hear from you. I know a lot of you had a lot of questions during the intermission, so it would be nice to have it in this forum for everybody to hear the concerns and understand a little more of what is happening out there. So if you all have any questions, now is the time. Shane.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I am particularly interested in the treatment. I can tell you I've had the experience of the challenges of maintenance, especially for the UV. The lights are not usually available in country, so you have to get it, and sometimes it takes a while.
Yeah.
So I've seen the challenges from that standpoint. So the maintenance part is really, really important. I welcome the introduction of the modular system, where we can do the treatment. Unfortunately, we do not have the standards for the reuse of the wastewater as yet to determine what purpose it is fit for. I don't know if you can indicate what purpose is the because we usually in Grenada say that the water is safe, and safe is not a standard. So, we are into wastewater treatment now as a adaptation measure for climate change. And so, while I welcome the treatment, the secondary treatment, while I welcome it, I really appreciate it. I don't know if you can comment on that, because we do not have the standards here. So, well, based on international standards, generally, well, most Caribbean countries generally use it more for landscape irrigation and for foods that are uncooked. Foods to be cooked, and sugarcane and so. So I don't know if you can speak to what are the uses, because if you are doing a treatment system, you don't want to just throw away the water back into the soil. You want to reuse it.
Well, thank you very much for that, and it's certainly something that we are all experiencing in this day and age, and it's the fact that we need to somehow reuse the water. We have challenges throughout the Caribbean and the world with regards to water conservation. So our units, well, we definitely see the interest in Grenada. During this visit, we kind of ensure, like everybody, ensure that we know that is needed, the irrigation is needed, the usage for the water after the treatment is very much needed. So, as you said, we don't have codes or we don't have any standards, but they are international standards that will guide you in the usage of treated wastewater, treated wastewater for irrigation. Now, this will include quite a few additional steps. So we will need to add to this some filtration systems, proper filtration systems. We will have to add, if UV is a challenge, we will have to see which other options are available. Membranes to enhance the surface area inside of the tank. There are various options, but we will have to see what is available locally or what we could make available locally in order to have a unit that will give you the effluent quality that you need to use for irrigation. Because the regular effluent leaving your septic tank or leaving your secondary treatment unit is not enough to be used for irrigation. That is a health hazard. I mean, before you could proceed to use any effluent for irrigation, testing should be done. That is highly recommended to ensure that you are within the parameters that are safe, for the environment and for human interaction. Remember, we are using this water to water plants, play parks, playgrounds, kids are playing around, a lot of people are exposed to this, so we have to make sure and we have to be wise and understand the risk of not treating the water to the level that is required and not doing the proper testing. So anyone who is thinking of installing a system for water to be used as irrigation after will require to do certain level of testing, at least initially and periodically, to ensure the output is reaching to that level. Now, what we could do, I know everybody showed interest in this, so we will see which options we could make available for you, because as you said, well, you don't have a lot of options here. And we could see if we could put together a system, maybe for a small household or something, to give you an idea of what are the parameters or that this unit will give you with regards to the effluent, and then we can move from there. But as I said, all of this is also dependent on the maintenance. If the unit is not maintained properly, it's going to malfunction, and if you do not test, you will end up sending raw sewage into your field or your garden or wherever you or the streams or wherever you throwing the water into. So that is very important. But thank you so much for raising that, and we definitely will be looking into providing some solutions to this market. Any other questions or any section of the presentation you all would like me to go through?
Hi. Good morning. Just a quick one, right? The modular system, right? I'm not familiar with the type of pump that's there, but let's say for example, the pump goes out. The aerobic section isn't working. Is there any form of redundancy, or can, let's say, someone who's ordering to you guys, these collaborators have some form of redundancy? And if that is not possible and pump goes out, what would be how does it really affect the final quality, given that it underwent previous stages of treatment and you still have to go, let's say, onto the UV after? How would that play out?
Well, I didn't hear your question very clearly because, so can you repeat what you were saying?
I'm asking, right, for the modular system there, right?
Yes.
You have the air pump there for the aerator. Now,
Yes.
if the aerator goes out, is there any other redundancy, or say someone is ordering from you guys, can they design some other form of redundancy? And now, if that is not possible, how would that really affect the final effluent quality, given that it is undergoing previous treatment and it still has to pass on to the next stage thereafter?
Good. Well, thank you very much for that question. So, the display unit we have here, we basically just have the pump exhibition, but we have the option of creating a panel, adding to it a panel with an alarm and a light. So the user could be informed if the air pump malfunctions. That is important. Once the air pump stops working, the system will basically stop working. I mean, you have other treatment happening, but it wouldn't be as efficient. So it's highly recommended that you install an alarm system, that will help you monitor the performance of your system. Because as I said, you don't want for the pump to stop working, you don't realize, and you start sending raw sewage throughout, the environment. So we could definitely work on that. I mean, we have various options. I was telling a few of you all. We could work according to your needs. If you tell us what do you need this unit with an alarm system, with a light, with something that will inform you, I don't know, to your phone, whatever, let you know if the pump is malfunctioning or anything. We could work together and ensure that you get the system that you require.
Thank you. Just an inquiry. Do you provide a light for your systems, or we can source it through you as well if we're interested?
The UV light?
That's it, yes.
Yes, we do. We do. So anytime, as I said, if you need a system that requires a UV light, you could always let us know, let our distributors know, and we will ensure that you have it available. The replacement bulbs are key. I mean, we have to also ensure that our distributors have the replacement bulbs, because we could set up the system with the UV light and it's working perfect, but the minute the bulb blows, what do you do? So we will definitely have to work closely with them to ensure that the stock is available and that all the components are available for easy replacement.
Following up on a previous question, with the aerated system, how long can the pump be off before it becomes dangerous? Because we do get power outages on island.
Well, I mean, it will not become dangerous immediately. You will still have the anaerobic bacteria and you will still have the aerobic bacteria there, even though it's the oxygen is not functioning, the bacteria will be there. If it remains off for 2 days, the bacteria is going to eventually start to die. You will start getting a scent because the system will be malfunctioning. But if you have a shortage for 2 hours, 3 hours, I don't know how long, are the shortages you'll have, but if it's something like that, the system is not going to fail, for sure. It's not going to malfunction. It's only if it happens for a week or a long period of time, well, eventually all the bacteria inside of it will die and it will not function. It will not treat the effluent. We are looking, I don't even know if I should say this or I'm saying it. We are looking at the option of probably by next year introducing a pump that works with solar power. So that will kind of ease up a little bit on the electricity requirements or issues like that. If you have, shortages or anything like that, it wouldn't really affect the system. Now, solar has other implications or other set of cons, so we have to balance off everything and see how feasible it is and how useful it will be. Any other questions? Comments? All right, well, if that is it for now, here we have some, our information. We have our phone numbers and email addresses. Nizam is our sales rep for the area, so you all could contact him for any inquiries. We have also our info box email, and most of you all will have our call cards, which were given at the entrance. So you could feel free to take a screenshot of the screen and keep the information. So if you require any additional information, if you have any further questions, you could always send us an email, and we will ensure and get back to you as soon as possible. So I will now hand over the mic to Shane.
Okay, hi everyone again. So we have a few questions. We love to do some giveaways before we start our next intermission and move over to our presentation with Vivek. So Warren.
Okay, so now we get to see who was paying attention, who was dealing with work on their phone, or who was listening to me. So I'm gonna ask 2 questions. You'll raise your hand. I don't know if too many hands shoot up, how I'm gonna determine who puts up their hand first. But you answer the question correctly, and you get a prize. And Vanna White will hand out the prize to you. Right. So, first question, grease trap. If you were paying attention. How frequently should you clean your grease trap? Once a month. That's not incorrect, but of course that would be with a commercial kitchen, so I will have to give that to you. So you could give the gentleman the prize. Yes. You're going to give it him? How much gifts do you have to give away? 4? Okay. All right, so good. All right. Huh? You want to ask 4 questions? You want me to ask all 4 questions? Okay. All right. Congratulations. Okay. Next question. It's a septic tank question. And it was on the screen. How often should you pump your septic tank? And we have a winner. Okay. Next question. Let me put in a rider. Anybody from environmental health is not allowed to answer this question. Sorry. What size septic tank would be suitable for a 1 to 2 bedroom house? She put up her hand. Okay. To the lady there. Two more? No, I'm just watching whose hand. I saw you, but her hand went up fast. Yeah, so that's good. I'm glad. I'm happy to hear that. All right. Okay, I have two more questions. I know what the last one is, but I was thinking of one before. Okay. Right. Can someone tell me what are, and their correct names, the two forms of treatment in our modular septic tank? Sorry? Okay, what I was looking for is anaerobic and aerobic. Okay. Right. One more gift, one more question. For now. For now. Right. This one. This one I'm going to have to really look and see who hand go up faster, so I'll need my colleagues to help me. What is my favorite Grenadian dish? Just to let you know, somebody's sponsoring me oil down for lunch. So, all right. So, folks, that was fun. Because you all didn't have any questions for me in my section, which we usually allot about 20 minutes for, and you had more questions for Sarah, we are ahead of time. So we have two options, which I'll put out to you. Normally we would break now. Well, lunch was done, the food was about 12:15. We can then probably go into Vivek session, complete that, and then you get your refreshments after, and you get to leave early, or would you like to inspect what we have here, ask some more questions to the staff, and then continue after? I'll open the floor to you. Vivek? Okay, all right. Okay, all right. So let me just put his presentation onto my laptop, and then, but I will give you 5 minutes if you want to go and use the washroom. Where's the, oh, I don't have a gift, but where's the washroom? Aha! I should have asked that question. Yeah. It's out through the door, down to the end of the corridor, and to the left, both the ladies and the gents are there. So I will give you all 5 minutes. Anybody who wants to go quickly, and then we'll start with Vivek's presentation. So let's just stop working. Okay, I'm just gonna 2 more minutes for those who went to the washroom, and then I'll hand over to to Shane, who will introduce Vivek. Okay, I'm handing you over to Shane, who will introduce Vivek.
Okay, so introducing Mr. Vivek Ramprasad, our regional sales manager with over 10 years of experience at the Water Source Limited, a company attached to our Trinidad operations. Vivek joined us in 2019 as a technical sales engineer and has been instrumental in driving sales growth of 15 to 20% annually while expanding our customer base significantly. Vivek is a graduate of Queen's Royal College in Trinidad, where he moved on to University of the West Indies in St. Augustine to complete his undergraduate degree in industrial engineering. At the Water Source, he's been responsible for sales growth over 20% year over year, with hundreds of new customers during his tenure. He works closely with local and regional engineering firms, for example, providing support for all pumps and water heaters at KFC, Pizza Hut, Subway, and Starbucks restaurants in Trinidad and Tobago. In his downtime, Vivek can be found enjoying his hobby of Lego or traveling with his loved ones, whom he intends to return with to Grenada. In the times we require technical support for pumps, heaters, and purpose-built package systems, Vivek's our go-to guy. So, round of applause for Vivek. Welcome. And he flew in here very early this morning just to be here in time for the seminar. So thank you, Vivek.
All right, thank you for that very warm welcome, Shane. And good morning, everyone. All right, just 1 second. Right, so my name again is Vivek Ramprasad. I am from another sector of the Rotoplastics group, called it the Water Source Limited. Now, if you all aren't familiar with what we do, typically at our core, we are a plumbing specialty retail store chain. But on the flip side, all the previous items that Warren and Shane would have gone through, be it our water pumps, water heaters, septic tanks, and water tanks, we service, maintain, and repair all of these items. Now, by a show of hands, can I just get a fair idea how many of you guys came here today specifically for our water pump segment? It was worth a try. All right, so my segment is going to be a little bit different compared to my colleagues. I actually would encourage you, if there's anything that I do cover that is a bit unclear, please put up your hand and feel free to stop me at any time. We can go over it once more. So now we can get this underway. Our overview of today, we have Pentax water pumps, Zilmet pressure tanks, Quailbo smart heads and controllers, a basic guide to pump sizing, priming a water pump, and our question and answer segment. So the Pentax mission is to offer high-quality solutions for every need and market with the addition of the passion and excellence of the brand made in Italy. So now we briefly view a video on a day at the life at the Pentax factory. Now, Warren, just give me a second. Yeah, I don't know what happened there. Right, guys, so just pardon the bit of technical we're going through here. All right, everyone, sorry again about that. But just from viewing that video, was there anything in particular that stood out? So one of the key aspects or takeaways from that, Pentax tests every single one of their pumps, and twice at that. Now, that's something that should not go unnoticed. So a bit about Pentax themselves. They were founded in 1990 with Italian origins, and today they are sold in over 100 countries worldwide. So some of the variations we offer, we have from left to right our PM series, which is our peripheral pumps, starting in a half horsepower variant at that. And then we have our we have our Inox series, CAM series, and cabs, respectively. Now, each of these, from second to fourth, are all self-priming with slight variations in the applications to match. A key point to note with the cab series specifically, it's a multi-stage pump available in 1.5 and 2 horsepower equivalents. So what are self-priming pumps? These pumps, if not self-explanatory already, do attempt to prime themselves after the initial and are in a best situation installed closer to your water tanks as possible, albeit they are available to install with a foot valve option where you do have concrete or underground storage tanks via a foot valve. So we have my colleague here, Jan, and he is going to show us a bit more on the Inox pumps.
We have something great to show you today. If you're looking for a reliable, hard-working water pump for your house or garden, introducing the Pentax Inox series. First off, these pumps feature a stainless steel AI-SI 304 front casing, which means they are built to resist corrosion. Less rust means reduced maintenance. This durability ensures that your pump will stand up to the elements for years to come. Its smooth stainless steel surface inhibits bacterial growth, and it's ideal for domestic setups, for everything from water transfer and rainwater harvesting to keeping your garden lush and thriving. I have to say, having a dependable pump like the Inox series backed by a 3-year warranty is a game changer. It's built tough, works hard, and keeps everything going just the way you need it.
I take it you guys are familiar with our cast iron Pentax pumps. Do you see the applications that the stainless steel pumps now can be used? All right, so I do hope that there is some consideration for that. And we move on to the benefits of our Pentax pumps, all backed by a 3-year warranty and quality Italian engineering. As we've seen in the video, each and every pump is tested twice and proudly boasts to be the #1 pump in the Caribbean for over 30 years. Now, our last point about assembled systems means they both are assembled with either a pressure tank option with a pressure switch to match, as well as they can also be assembled with a smart head controller, either the compact 2 or the cone type control pump. Right, so pictured here we have the stainless steel inox we just looked at with Jan, with a 5-gallon pressure tank made by Zilmet. So from left to right, we have different combinations, either with CAM series, inox, as well as cab. On furthest left and furthest right, we have the compact 2 and the control pump we just mentioned, providing automatic start-stops as needed. And then we have the Zilmet once more in the center. So a bit more about Zilmet. These pressure tanks are available in fixed bladder as well as non-fixed. The range in sizes from 8 liter all the way up to 500 liter. And based on your particular application, you can have a max operating pressure of 10 bar or 16 bar. So always remember, the larger your pressure tank, the less work on your pump, less electricity in terms of the number of starts of your pump, and all in all, it's better for your pump's longevity. Never forget, the sky is the limit when it comes to sizing your pressure tank. So some of the key features of these Zilmet pressure tanks, it's carbon steel shell, it's butyl diaphragm, polypropylene liner on the inside, and a stainless steel bottom threaded connection, commonly in 3/4 or 1-inch NPT. Here we see another cutaway of the Easy Pro. Right, we see that inside view of where the water enters at the bottom, and top connection is isolated where our air is stored. So that once more, this photo is inverted, showing that air valve at the bottom and our water connection at the top. And here we have pictured an installation of a standing pressure tank. Are there any changes anyone can point out what could have been installed on the system? Plumbing-wise, that is. No changes? All right, so when pressurizing your pressure tank, it should always be noted to gauge where you want your pump ideally to be operating, or your operating range. You would hear the terms cut in, cut out, which just basically means your start and stop of your pump itself. What does this really have to do with your pressure tank? At the end of the day, your pressure tank needs to work hand in hand with your pressure switch. And by that, whatever is your start pressure of your pump, for example, 30 psi, you're going to want your pressure tank to be 2 psi lower. For example, in that scenario, it's going to be 28 psi. And keep in mind that it's going to be dry pressure. That's no water introduced in the system as yet. So when the tank is also being serviced later down the road, say every 6 months or chosen interval, you're going to want to ensure that our dry pressure is maintained at 2 psi below cut-in. Here we have a brief video in terms of pressure tank replacement.
Does your well pump continually click on and off while the water is running? Or does water coming from the faucets pulsate? If so, you likely have a bad pressure tank, and it's really important to replace it with a new one. And if you have any plumbing skills at all, you can do it yourself in only a couple of hours, and you'll save yourself lots of money in plumbing fees to boot. A pressure tank has a rubber bladder that traps a bubble of air above the water. As the tank fills with water, it compresses the air. When the pump shuts off, that compressed air keeps the water flowing to your house. But when the rubber bladder fails, the entire tank fills with water, which is called waterlogging. That means that the pump continually switches on and off to keep that water flowing, and that's very hard on your very expensive well pump. Test the tank's bladder by depressing the air valve at the top. If water squirts out instead of air, the tank is full of water and needs to be replaced. But it's also possible that that air valve is blocked, so if no water comes out, try one more test. Wiggle the tank back and forth. It'll be very heavy if it's completely full of water. You can't fix a tank with a bad bladder, so you have to replace it. But before you start ripping out the old tank, you should go buy everything you need. After all, you want this to go as smoothly and quickly as possible because your house won't have any water until you get that new tank up and running. When you pick up the new tank, try to get the same size and if possible the same brand as the one you're replacing so you'll know that everything will hook up exactly the same. They sell pressure tanks at most home centers or plumbing supply stores. If you're at all handy, you probably have all the tools you'll need except for maybe a couple of pipe wrenches and either thread dope or Teflon tape. Shut off both the circuit breaker to the well and the wall switch near the pressure tank. Then hook up a garden hose to the tank, open the valve and drain the water. Open up a few faucets in the rest of the house to speed up the process. The tank may not drain completely because the rubber bladder could be trapping the water. If the water stops running and the tank is still heavy, you have two options. After disconnecting the tank, muscle the partially empty tank out of the house if it's not too heavy. Or if you're in the basement, lay it on its side near a floor drain and drill a hole in the top half of the tank. Disconnect the water line by loosening the union fitting. Lift the tank out of the way and lay it on its side. Unscrew the water line so you can use it on the new tank. Smear pipe dope or wrap Teflon tape on the threads of the water line and thread it onto the elbow. Make sure the water line is facing directly up so it'll mate with the coupling. Thread the coupling together, tighten it up, and this tank is ready for service. Now don't forget, before you turn the power back on and fill the tank full of water, replace the old pressure switch with a brand new one. The new one should be preset to the correct pressure, but read the directions that come with the new switch to get everything right.
Right, everyone. So any questions on that video or anything we've seen so far? All right, so just to summarize, to keep your pump pumping longer, we do, sorry.
Yeah, the water pump. Now, in terms of the consumption of electricity, which would you prefer, the smart head or the pressure tank? Because you're looking at the life of the pump and the consumption of electricity. So which one would you recommend?
Ideally, that specific question would boil down to two things. It's going to boil down to your application and preference. Why I'm getting at that, the smart head is going to stay on as long as you want the pump to stay on. However, the pressure tank, that particular system is going to run as long as you set it to via the pressure switch, as well as the size of that tank itself. So at the end of the day, the smart head will keep the pump running longer than the pressure tank would, in most instances. I'm not sure if that answers the question.
And at the same time, you'll be shortening the life of the pump based on what you said earlier at the same time.
Well, again, yes and no. It also depends on how exactly you're using the pump. Meaning, if you're using the pump for, say, showers back-to-back or in a regular household application, as long as you turn that pump on, the smart head is going to tell it to turn itself on. Whereas with the pressure tank is going to act as a buffer in between these start and stops. Yeah?
Well, in my experience, I would think based on your consumption, yes. Like for instance, you may use the pressure tank for like a hotel, but for like a dwelling house, you may use the smart head based on your occupancy at the same time. So, because in some cases, like you might have the solar heat on the roof, and when you open the tap down below the cold water tap, it might slow down the hot water because the hot water has to travel cold water up to the roof and then the hot water comes back down. So in a lot of instances, I think it takes a lot of planning ahead of the installation before you decide which one you're going to go with. Also in terms of your consumption of electricity, if you have solar, then you have to balance it out. You know, for instance, if you have a solar pump, that's a pump that could do solar, or you have a solar system that runs the pump, you know. So it's a lot, sometimes you have to put into it before you actually execute the job.
Yeah, I could definitely agree with that. And you did specify about the different application there. So that brings you back to the initial installation itself. When you are selecting that pump, you do have to select the application that's right for you, either that controller or the pressure tank, correct? Right. So to close off on our pressure tank segment, we have the key points, which would be our strong steel shell, that butyl diaphragm again, and no waterlog, assuming that the tank is maintained as it should. All right. So from pressure tanks, we now move on to their colleagues or their best companions, which would be the pressure gauge and pressure switch, respectively. The pressure switches that we do supply and provide run at either 6 or 12 bar maximums. They do have another range of readings and PSI also, for those who do prefer that, from sizes ranging from 2-inch all the way up to 4 inches, either liquid filled or non-liquid filled. Each and every one carries a 1/4-inch bore, and at the end of the day, your pressure gauge is a visual representation of what your pump is performing at. Now, alternatively, the pressure switch is exactly what controls the pump in terms of that cut in, cut out, or start and stop, that's simply put, based on the differential pressures at the operation of the building, property, or home. The particular switch that's pictured here, which should be either male or female, ranges up to 80 psi maximum set pressure. So once more, we have that they are available in either male or female 1/4-inch connections. Now, last but not least, anyone here can tell me the importance of one of these float switches? Correct. Not only a pump end, but also a motor end, right? You would not want to be in a situation where you have a low water instance inside your water tank, be it an underground tank, a tough tank, hopefully, and your pump is without water. At the end of the day, when there's a low water scenario, your pump is going to cut off and only return to function when that water surpasses that float switch level. So to summarize that, no float switch can eventually lead you to swollen fittings, boiling water, or motor burnout, if not a combination of two or more. And we have a visual representation here of our typical tough tank setup paired with a Zilmet pressure tank assembled on a Pentax Cam series pump. Now, at a quick glance, anyone, would you point out any changes that's typically done locally in terms of the inlet, outlet plumbing? I do apologize for this. This was Trinidad with the standard 110 volt. Any changes, recommendations? No? If not, we do proceed to the other side of the coin when using our Pentax pumps. We do have our Quilbo Smart Head range and controller range. Now, what is a Smart Head? A Smart Head is an electronic device that turns the pump on or off automatically, replacing that pressure tank, pressure switch, float switch, and even pressure gauge. It allows for the immediate shut-off and automatic shut-off in the event of a low water or a low flow scenario, also protecting the pump as needed. Majority of the controllers offered by Quilbo all feature a manual restart button in the event of a low water shut-off and the pump cannot turn itself back on. That allows the user to now restore the pump back to function. So simply put, these Quilbo Smart Heads are an all-in-one device, replacing that pressure switch, pressure tank assembly that we just mentioned. They are space-saving, commonly used with our pump housings. Unfortunately, our current iteration of the pump housing does not factor in the pressure tank, but hopefully my lovely colleague, Sarah Garcia, can include that on version 3. It's also a safety device to protect your pump from running without water. Conversely, a pressure tank setup is going to have to utilize a float switch to do this. And second to last, it delivers water pressure and regulates it as need be to your faucet. Now, I know a lot of users of the Smart Head, prefer this because of the lower maintenance. With a pressure tank system, you're going to have to do those checks every 3 to 6 months. However, with the Smart Head now, once you do have, say, a voltage regulator, it's pretty much plug and play. So some of the key features with the two models we just mentioned would be they both feature a reset button. The Compact 2, how it differs from the control pump, features visible fault lights, a small reserve against leaks, and an automatic reset test. What that means, when the pump does shut off because of a low water scenario, it will attempt over the next 24 hours to turn itself back on. Once that is not complete, it goes into a failure state until you do press that reset button once more. However, the control pump, even though it lacks that fault light that the Compact 2 does, what it does share an advantage of, its parts are, it's more serviceable, I would like to say, meaning if the diaphragm itself ever needs to replace, circuit board, or even the base, these problems or issues later down the road can be isolated and changed just at that. However, with the Compact 2, ever in future when you do run into an issue, be it the circuit board or otherwise, the only thing, unfortunately, that can be changed would be the circuit board itself. So some food for thought there. So here we have a visual on the Smart Head assembly itself. Now, can anyone tell me why that particular smart head might have gone into a failure mode, if you all picked up on it? Correct. It would have been plugged in at the factory to show that very response, as in no flow. So similar to the previous visual we have now our assembly with a Quailbow smart head, specifically the control pump. Right, if you all want to take any photos of this, feel free. And we proceed. So we previously mentioned the pump housing specifically. I know Warren would have touched on it briefly as well. These specific pump housings, they are pretty easy to install and very weatherproof at that. They are compatible with our CAM range, inox range, when paired with either of the smarted options we discussed. And they do feature a large vent to the rear that is not pictured in this photo specifically. However, what is pictured is the wide access port to the front. If anyone is familiar with the previous iteration, it was simply two holes, one at the top, one at the bottom, and this was not truly ideal when it came to accessing the plumbing within the pump housing itself. However, this version, in version 2, was also upgraded with added colors with the granite gray and granite blue pictured. So here we just have our dimensions with our vent and both colors. Now we're going to touch briefly on pump sizing. So one of the first considerations I would recommend when doing any pump sizing, please confirm at the customer's property or even your own what is the voltage available on site. Now, can anyone tell me what would occur if a 220 volt supply was applied to a 110 volt motor? Correct. You're going to have very quick motor burnout. However, if the scenario was reversed and you do have a 110 supply on a 220 volt motor, what's going to happen there? Correct. You're going to experience slow revs and then eventual motor damage from that. So next you want to consider demand itself. The property, how many water outlets are there specifically? How many levels at the property? Now, these outlets do include showers, shower fixtures at that, kitchen faucets, toilets, even garden taps. We truly do recommend at least a 1-inch plumbing into the pumps themselves, as well as out for the discharge for these pumps to function how they truly were intended. As we do see here, the 1-inch is ideal. 3/4 is okay. However, less than 3/4, it tends to become a bit of a problem over time. Can anyone tell me what's the typical standard when plumbing out locally? In local homes in Grenada, what do you guys typically use here? 1/2 inch? And are we talking 1/2 inch entirely or 1/2 inch branch? Okay.
And the next next stop is stop. I don't know if you heard. Did you hear what I said?
Yeah, you did. Yeah, so sorry about that, Sarah. But yes, that is a cause for concern using that half-inch throat. Ideally, it would be in a perfect world if we could have done 1 inch or even 3/4 for a branch, and then at each fixture do half-inch as needed in terms of a reduction. However, that's not the perfect world scenario that we live in. And what that tends to cause now would be additional work by your pump, as well as you're going to have to size a larger spec pump to accommodate from those friction losses. By mentioning that about friction losses, ideally what should be known, the smaller the pipe, the larger the friction loss through that pipe itself. So some additional considerations would be, are there any irrigation or sprinkler systems at the property, or even shower jets? Now, the basic sizing states 1 gallon per minute for each delivery point, be it toilet, showers, tubs, face basins, or even garden taps. However, for homes that do feature larger rainfall shower heads, for example, or even bathtubs, you can feel free to utilize a flow rate of 1.2 gallons per minute. So here we see just an example for reference, a 2-story home featuring 1 bed, 1 bath, a kitchenette below. At a glance, we just see that shower, a washing machine, as well as that kitchen faucet, and possibly even a garden tap on the outside. What would you guys expect this plumbing size to be? If you had to gauge this plumbing at the property, what would be your recommendation? No, the plumbing size itself in terms of inches, 1/2, 3/4, or 1. Ideally, 1 would be perfect, but in the event that 1 cannot be used, we would accept 3/4. I'm just happy no one said 1/2. All right, so once over, we consider the questions we have to ask: how many faucets, what electrical supply is available, and how many stories at the property. So some typical pump sizing when dealing with these jet pumps, say for a single-story home with only 2 baths, it is safe to recommend a 1/2 horsepower or even a 3/4 if that added flow or pressure is needed. Some added considerations to that would also be pipe size, distance from the home that the pump is going to be installed. But once those things aren't a factor, the 1/2 or 3/4 would suit you perfectly. However, we move on to now a 2-story home, say with 3 bathrooms. We're going to recommend that that customer or homeowner uses a 3/4 or even a 1 horsepower pump. So we have some
The basic pump curve looks like this, but they do get more complicated and look something like this. The basic pump curve looks like this, but they do get more complicated and look something like this. Don't worry, we're going to go through them step by step and start from the basics. Each type of pump has a different chart, and the data plotted on them also varies with the model. The first thing we notice is that on the main vertical y-axis we have the head pressure, and on the vertical x-axis we have the flow rate. Basically speaking, the head is pressure and the flow rate is how much water the pump can move. So what do these charts represent? If we turn the pump sideways and connected it to a pipe, the pump is pushing the liquid horizontally, so there is no pressure, but the water is flowing at its maximum flow rate. As we slowly rotate the pump towards the vertical position, we see the flow rate decreases but the pressure increases. That's because it's now pushing against the water and the friction. As we get all the way to the vertical position, there is 0 water flowing out of the pump but maximum pressure. And that's because it's using all its energy to push against the water and hold it as high as it possibly can within the pipe. At this point, it's just spinning the same bit of water, which isn't good for the pump, so you don't want to run a pump like this in the real world. By recording the values during the elevation, we basically get our pump curve, although I will note that pump manufacturers don't test pumps this way because it's just not practical. If you want to know how a centrifugal in detail in our previous video, do check that out, links down below. Head is shown on the vertical axis, and this is referring to pressure, so we often hear the term head pressure. We measure head in feet or meters, which doesn't seem correct considering we're talking about pressure, especially as you see the pressure gauges on the pump typically reading PSI or bar. The reason for feet or meters is that pump manufacturers only know how high their pump can push a liquid. They do not know which liquid your system will be pumping, and as each liquid has different properties, the pressure will vary depending on the liquid used. However, the height it can be moved by the pump will remain the same. For example, we have this pump which can provide 125 feet of head. If we use it to pump water, the pressure will be around 54.25 psi. But if we were to use it to pump milk, then the pressure will be around 56.15 psi. And that's purely because of the properties of the two fluids. Conversion between feet and meters of head is very easy. We have a free calculator for that, which you can find links to in the video description below. Why do we need to know head pressure? Pumps are usually used to move liquid to a higher region, so we need to ensure the pump can reach this elevation. As we pump liquid through the pipes and the fittings, friction will try to oppose the flow. This occurs from the walls of the pipe, but also disturbances to the flow path. This causes pressure losses which waste energy from the pump. The amount of friction depends on the liquid type as well as the materials and fittings used. Therefore, we must calculate how much friction or pressure loss our system will generate and ensure that the pump we select can overcome this.
Right, so I know that was quite a bit of info, but just by a show of hands, can anyone tell me if they are currently using their Pentax pumps for pumping milk? All right, maybe later this year we'll bring out those Pentax milk pumps. So briefly, on those CAM series pumps specifically that we spoke about, we do see the pump curve of our half, 3/4, and 1 horsepower variants denoted by 50N, 75N, and 100N. Now, the x-axis specifically represents flow, whereas the y-axis is commonly denoted in either meters or feet. It can be converted between, say, feet and pressure if needed, but ideally these two parameters are what we call pump performance. Ideally, the flow rate of the pump in gallons per minute, and then that TDH, or total dynamic head, in feet or PSI. So we have Jan once more on how to prime a Pentax pump.
Hi, my name is Jan, and today we're going to talk about priming a Pentax water pump. Firstly, we're going to turn our two lockout valves to the closed position. Next, we're going to break the union on our discharge line. Next, we're going to open our supply line to allow water to flow through the pump into the front casing and out the discharge. Now that the water is flowing through, there will be air escaping. What you want to see is a nice steady flow of water coming through the discharge line. Now we're going to reconnect our union on our discharge line. Now we're going to open our lockout valve. Now we're going to plug it in and now we're ready to pump.
All right, so now that formally brings us to our question and answer segment.
How to prime the pump when you have a positive suction. In other words, the water comes from higher than the pump. Now, when you have a negative suction, when you have the tank down below and the pump is on top, you did not show us that, so you left me empty.
No, trust me, we will take note of that, and I'm glad you brought the point up because that specifically was with reference to utilizing it with our tough tanks. Yeah, so I do understand and appreciate that. So we can follow up if you guys do want that video. Is that something that would be appreciated. Sure. We do appreciate that feedback. Any more questions?
Yes, I would like to know how readily available is the parts for the pump, because most time we get suppliers, they sell the pump, and if a part was to go, you go back to them, they don't have parts for this or they don't have. So how readily available is the parts for the pump, or is it a case that you don't need parts that often, or how does that go? Say like the bladder membrane, how often does that have to change?
So just to answer specifically about the question you had asked, I'll start with the pressure tank. So that bladder. So specifically, these Easy Pro tanks that we do carry, they are fixed bladder. What that means is it's not possible to replace that in the event of a failure. So once you are maintaining that tank as you should, checking air, topping up the air, the tank will experience a longer life. However, if it does experience a premature failure, the only solution is an outright replacement. Now, as it pertains to the pump parts, I would like to pass along to my colleague Nizam.
Actually, yes, our distributors do have the parts for pumps, so it's readily available. You can check LL Ramdani, you can check Noel's Plumbing, you can check Dollarman, you can check Paddy's, you could check LA Purcell, and On the Spot Hardware.
I do hope that answers. Perfect. Any more questions, guys? What parts?
Well, I have a question as it relates to the pump. I know that you have both 110 or 220 options, but is there a situation where we have dual voltage? For example, your television can be used either 110 or 220, same thing with the phone. Can that be also applied to the pumping system? I think it's something to be looked at so that you have no difficulties. You can just buy and just connect it and we move forward instead of thinking about 110 or 220 options.
And I do appreciate that feedback specifically. However, the Pentax range itself, it's either 110, 60 hertz, and not to sidetrack too much, but I must mention all the pumps that we mentioned today are all available 50 hertz, right? So rest assured about that. But back to the point of the motors specifically. So yes, they are available in 110, 60 hertz, 220, 50 cycle, which would be used locally, correct? However, there isn't currently an option for that dual voltage, but it is something we can discuss with the manufacturer themselves to see if that's something that is in the works, because there is a scenario with other manufacturers that do have that. Yeah. Any more questions, guys? All right, so before we close, I would encourage you guys, you all can reach my colleague Nizam. If you guys have any product queries, he would guide you right along to the distributors as you all have any product concerns. Specifically, if you all have any technical questions, if you all have any requirements of pumps for projects specifically, commercial projects at that, you can feel free to reach out to me via email. And just before we close, we really would appreciate your feedback at this time. it's really for us to grow, to see our gauge, and don't rush all at once to put me as your favorite speaker of the day. But my colleagues, both Sarah and Warren, are there. Ideally, it's going to rate our performance each, as well as anything that you all would have liked to have seen. It's only going to help us grow for our future trainings and seminars that we hope to host with you guys. So I'll leave this up for a moment, and I would strongly encourage you guys, if you all can do this before you grab a bite. And in closing, I would just pass you guys back over to Warren. And thank you so much for your time. Around as long as you guys are here. Any questions, feel free to approach me.
Thank you, Vivek. But before we break for refreshments, it's prize giving time again. So I hope you were paying attention to Vivek's presentation, because I have more stuff to give away. Now, before that, though, Shane, Okay, firstly, what we like to do is recognize people who ask questions, and contribute and make the session better. So, since nobody asked any questions during my session, well, too bad. But during Sarah's question, we have a nice water bottle, which we'd like to present to the lady in the black sweater and pinkish top for asking her very important question during Sarah's session. A round of applause. We don't tell people in advance because everybody asks all kind of spurious questions, but we do it in each of our things. Next up, we have Jane? Okay. We have a tape measure, which I would like, and a hat, yes, okay, we would give to our multiple plumbing questions. Thank you for your contributions. We greatly appreciate it. Right. That's the free stuff. Now it gets a little trickier if you want to get things. Okay. I have 4 items I am giving away. I'm going to relate them to stuff in Vivek's presentation, but the first one, unfortunately, was way back in my presentation, but I'll ask a question in Vivek's own to give it away. What year was Pentax founded? 1990 was the correct answer. Yes. So for that, she will get 1 rainwater harvester. Okay. Next up. What is the name of the device that has an automatic reset test? Which one in particular? Compact 2. Compact 2, okay. Yeah, okay. So for that, she will get 1 Compact 2 Smart Head. Vivek, you'd like to present it to her? You get a picture? Sure. Anybody? Okay, so get it? Okay. We will present you and we'll take a picture with you, okay? All right. Next up, what is the device that we manufacture that can tell you the level of water in your tank? Fell in red. Float switch. You have won yourself 1 float switch. Okay. Last one. Oh, we have more hats to give away. I'll give it out after. Okay, but this one. All right. What are, I saw people putting their hands ready to shoot up. Okay. What are the 2 colors that the Pentax pump house comes in? Yeah, I see you, so stand up. In the back, you put your both hands up. Nope. Next person. Gray and blue. So for that, you win yourself. No, she's getting one Pentax pump house. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we have what? 1, 2, 4 more hats to give away. Okay, so it'll be easy questions. Let's see. Easy questions for a hat. I should really. Okay. What feature differentiated one of the specific pumps that Vivek talked about that prevents it from corrosion? He said, is that okay? All right. You're only getting a hat. You're not getting an inox pump. Sorry. But it's a Pentax cap. Yeah. All right. Next question. I had this one, but since I wasn't giving away that, that's okay. Think back to one of the videos that Vivek showed. What if the bladder was to rupture in the pressure tank? What did the gentleman suggest the first thing you try before doing anything else with the pressure tank? Ooh, okay. A red hat? Okay. Excellent. You get a Pentax hat. I don't have a Zilmet hat, but you get a Pentax hat. All right. How many more hats? 2 more. We like Oprah. Okay. So I only have to do one more question and then. Right. Okay. One more question from Vivek's presentation. Let me think. I don't want to make it too easy. Okay. No, that's too difficult for a hat. Oh, okay. What is the largest size Zilmet tank Vivek said they make? One person of their hand. Vivek, 500? Biggest size? Zilmet tank? 500 is correct. Give the lady a hat. She's right there. Previous winner. Hat, yes. Okay. For the last hat, it's very simple. Under one of your chairs, there's a Tough Tank sticker. Whoever is seated on the seat that has a Tough Tank sticker will get the last hat. Tough Tank sticker. Okay. We actually have a grand prize. I've just been notified. Okay. So Vivek only mentioned it once in the presentation because he said I did all the hard questions already. So anyway, so for the grand prize, who can name the 3 different sizes in the CAM series? So, yeah, in horsepower. Okay. Okay. So, the gentleman wins 1 PM 45 with a Compact 2 Smart Head, presented by Nizam Ramjan. Right. Okay. There's nothing else under any other chairs. You don't need to look, right? I didn't hear anybody say they bring in a Clark's Court 50 for me, so I'm a bit disappointed. So, next septic seminar, or whatever, you know in advance, if I come in, have it ready, all right? Okay, so thank you very much. Let me, please don't forget to give your feedback. We really appreciate it. We do it at each seminar so we know what we did well, what we didn't do as well, how we can improve, what you wanted to hear. So your feedback, we really appreciate if you do it. I want to thank my team with me, Shane, once again, Vivek, Sarah and Nizam in the back. We also would like to thank TNR, who provided audio and the live stream, and VSI Solutions, who provided the screen for us, and also mention Ms. Chantel Peters of the Radisson, who assisted me in setting up this seminar, who, without all these people, it would not have been possible. And the
Introducing Pentax water pumps. With state-of-the-art Italian engineering and over 34 years of manufacturing experience, Pentax pumps are the epitome of quality and reliability. Rest easy with our new and improved 3-year warranty and after-sales support, ensuring your satisfaction. Choose Pentax pumps for unrivaled reputation and outstanding performance. Where there's water, there's Pentax.
Step into freshness and organization with our versatile stacking trays. Perfect for every aisle, every kitchen, and every display. Organize your shelves and display your products beautifully in your grocery. In the kitchen, they're your best ally for keeping ingredients fresh and within reach. Durable, stackable, and easy to clean, these trays are built for versatility and strength. From market displays to professional kitchens, our stacking trays meet every need with style. Upgrade your storage and display our stacking trays. Available now at Rotoplastics.